The Simply Successful program offers stress management tools for the lifespan, so small children, adolescents, or adults can be simply successful.
Hello, I'm Deb Timmerman.
And I'm Beth Tuttle. Welcome to the Simply Successful program. We teach stress management skills that build resilient kids, successful families, and thriving communities.
Welcome. If you've listened to our show before, you know that we cover many topics that cause stress in people's lives. We met Don and Catherine Gant at a show recently, and they have a product that helps women with their monthly cycle. So we know how stressful that can be, especially for teens. So we decided to invite them on the show to talk about this whole process and how we can make it less stressful. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Catherine, as a woman, what made you so excited about the product that you found?
Well, the product that we were introduced to in 2016 got me extremely excited because it's basically built on a campaign as Now We Know, and it's educating women and our young girls on toxic chemicals that are in a product that we have to use during a portion of our life.
So you're talking about tampons and pads.
I am tampons and pads. And so what we got introduced to this is called Cherish. And the Cherish product is actually 100% all natural, chemical free pad that also has a negative ion strip that's infused. That's part of that pad.
So one of the reasons that we were so interested in chatting with you is we were not aware that tampons and pads actually are recycled paper materials with a covering over them that have chemicals in them.
Yes, and so if you actually Google WebMD, and they'll kind of go through and tell you what's in your tampon and pad, and they kind of talk about the different how the pads are processed, how the pads and tampons are processed today. You'll also hear them talk about the toxic shock syndrome, which has to do with the tampons, because they also kind of give some background information about the pesticides that are in the cotton that's used in the tampon, and that how that pesticide residue a lot of times will be on that tampon. And then you'll hear about women having exposure where you'll hear about the toxic shock syndrome.
So you mentioned an interesting statistic that there are over 600,000 hysterectomies performed every year in the United States. Is there a link between that and the chemicals we absorb from our pads?
Well, when you go and do your own personal research, you're going to see a lot of information out there when it talks about 600,000 hysterectomies are done on the women in the United States of America today, and you're wondering, okay, why is that so high? You'll also hear about, the rashes and urinary tract infections. You'll hear where, on the average, a woman will have used over 15,000 either pads or tampons during the lifetime of her menstrual cycle.
Holy moly.
But then it gets even more interesting for over 100,000 hours. And so with these products having the different types of chemicals that are in them, then the body starts to react to that. And so then you'll hear the different feedback from the different research that's been done on toxic chemicals that are in the products that we're using, and could this be making our women sick? And you just look at the research that's out there.
Yeah, and you think most of us now are more aware of toxins that are in our food and lotions and soaps that we use on our body, but we don't think about the pads and the tampons. That just, so what makes yours different? You mentioned an ion strip and that it was chemical free. What is physically in yours or makes it so natural?
Well, because the Cherish pads are 100% all natural, chemical free, and the negative ion strip, what that does, it actually helps to pull out the toxins, so it reduces smell. It also helps to reduce the uterus wall, so you don't have as much cramping that women tend to experience when they're going through their cycle. And so the feedback that we've been getting from women have been phenomenal. we've got feedback where they're saying that the duration of their menstrual cycle is not as long, from going from like 7 to 10 days. You'll have some women saying that it's now 3 days, because what's happening as they begin to use our Cherish pads, their body begins to normalize and it starts doing what it's supposed to do without the interference or disruption of any type of chemical.
Wow.
So before we hopped on the air, Catherine was talking about teenagers and how girls at school will have a heavy flow and they'll end up calling mom. Can you share with our listeners about the girl who tried your product and what great results she had?
Well, I had a group of teenagers over to the house, and so what we do is that we take and we do what we call an absorbency test. So we take the number one brand out there in the market and we compare it with our brand. And when we do that, we kind of show them how much absorbency are the pads giving you, or how much protection are the pads giving you. So when we did that absorbency test, they saw right away that it wasn't really absorbing anything. So then we actually dismantled it and took it apart. And when we took it apart, they're like, "What? This is what I'm using right now." So I said, "Well, try our pads and give me feedback on what you notice different." So one of the teens said that she gets so sick that her grandmother has to literally come, either her grandmother or mom has to come and literally pick her up from school because she is in so much pain and is cramping. And so she said, so every month she hates when she knows that her cycle's coming, because she immediately gets a lot of cramping. So she began to start using our Cherish pad, and so the feedback came back. I didn't have cramping, and then she also noticed that her cycle was not as long and it was not as heavy. Now, what's really interesting is that because she keeps her she has her stuff packed in her. She has a backpack that she takes to school, and this is she's part of a cheerleading camp. So she takes her goes to school and she forgets, and she has the other pad, and she had to use it. And she said as soon as she put it on, she could tell right away she started cramping. And so she called her mom. She says, "Mom, you got to come and bring the other pads, because I forgot and left the other ones in there. Can you bring the Cherish pads, please?"
Women all over the world moan about that time of the month because it's kind of a pain. And I think it adds to not having a positive body image. If you can use tools and things that help, I would think that would make it so much easier for young women, and it would
especially
change
for
the world.
Teenagers when they're in school and already they're trying to fit in, and now we have to keep calling to go home, and so that's huge. Well,
this is the other thing that I'm learning as we go out, because we go all around, and we've been in Illinois, different places in Michigan, talking about our product. And so what we have found, a lot of feedback, but this is what's really interesting, because when we talk about 600,000 women having a hysterectomy in the United States every year, the feedback comes back because they don't know that sometimes when they have the hysterectomy that their uterus gets tilted and they have to go back and use pads. And so then they come. So these are the women that suffer in silence, and also our seniors. Our seniors, they also have a little leakage, and so a lot of them are using pads, but they historic numbers of urinary tract infections, and they can't figure out where is this coming from. So they started using our pads, and so now the feedback has been coming back that urinary tract infections have went away.
So where do our listeners find more information about these pads? Are they available here in the U.S.?
They are. They're available here in the U.S., and they can actually order them online. And then they can actually go to, we have a website, it's www.fightforhealth.today. That's where they can actually order the Cherish product.
Okay. So again, that's Fight, F-I-G-H-T, F-O-R, Health, Health.today. What do you see as the biggest hindrance with women and girls regarding their monthly cycle?
I would say the biggest hindrance is that I think the mental strain that it puts on them, because every month they know it's going to come, and then every month they know how painful and horrible it's going to be, because some of the stories about soaking through, they're at work or they're at school, and embarrassment of having to go change. I mean, some girls are saying they have to change 2 or 3 times a day their clothes because it leaks through so bad.
I think every woman can identify with that, and being afraid to stand up because you might leave your mark on the chair or whatever.
So right now there is just pads that are made. Is there a thought towards a tampon too?
That always comes up, and it's a really good question, because the body is designed to function a certain way. And so when you use a tampon, what you're basically doing is you're disrupting that body from its natural flow, because it's kind of like putting a cork in there. So you're creating a chemical stew, because you got to keep in mind it's the tampon, because of the potential pesticide residue that could be on the tampon. So then what you're doing, you're telling the body, just wait until we finish creating this stew, and then they end up having more problems.
So the recommendation is to not use tampons, to use pads.
Right, because we want the body to do what it's designed to do, to naturally let that toxins that it's pushing out, let it come out.
That's sloughing off. Losing that lining every month is meant to not be absorbed by a tampon.
Right, and then you'll even have, because there's even a lot of talk about cups and all that kind of stuff, and that's fine. But I think there's also been research that's been done on the cups, and if women aren't careful of making sure that it's sterilized when they're using it, and then their hands are sterile when they're reusing it, that it creates the same problem as a tampon would.
So maybe, yes, this would be a great thing for someone to check into, because they're thinking, well, with the tampon, I don't feel like I'm sitting in my stuff, because obviously the pads that are sold in the store aren't absorbing, like you said, where the Cherish, your feedback is they're not feeling like that, and they are feeling cleaner. And
we can tell you that we did see Catherine at a show, and they did the absorbency test with a regular pad and one of the Cherish pads, and they used 50 mLs. So 30 ml is an ounce, so just under 2 ounces. And the Cherish pad took all that in one pad, and the other spilled all over the place. So it is definitely more absorbent, and it really got our interest.
Yeah.
And so this is the other thing that's really interesting about this whole Cherish phenomenon, is that this company was started by men, and the reason why it was started by men is that they also had a lack of knowledge of what women were going through, and so the whole Now We Know campaign actually was for the men to be aware of the mental fatigue and strain that their women go through once a month, to have a better understanding and better appreciation for it. And so as the company began to grow, that Now We Know campaign actually now became more of an educational piece. And so you'll have men talking to women about menstrual cycles, and it's very interesting when it happens. I think because that when Don did that presentation last week, that was interesting.
Yeah. I thought the reason I thought this was so cool is it opens up the conversation. Our bodies go through these rhythms. They're natural. They're designed to do it, and we're trying to hide and cover everything up and trying to be all girl-like about it. And when you're stressed out about this, you're not hiding anything. Your man knows because you're crabby, right? Exactly. And so does everybody else around you. So again, you can find their products at www.fightforhealth today, and that is the Now We Know NO campaign. You can find Catherine, if you want to contact her directly, at 269-352-6907. And if you're stressed out and you need some stress relieving tips, you can find them on our website at simplysuccessfulprogram.com under the blog tab. Final words, Beth?
Thanks so much for joining us. It was very informative, and I think women will go out and check this out. I know I'm going to.
Thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.